Kara. I am from Instrument. So we're an independent digital creative agency in Portland, Oregon. As you probably saw from my bio online, I do have a new Pomeranian puppy, which I'm pretty excited about. I'm not a designer, so you're probably super surprised to learn that I drew this myself. So Instrument's a company that's grown by about 70 people in the last couple years, and we've also scaled up the services that we offer. And all of this is really driven by this desire to improve on our products and really be able to acquire and retain great client relationships. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Instrument, a little bit more about our organization and structure, and how that's kind of worked for us as we've grown, and some changes we've made along the way. Pretty much it all culminates to how it's given a lot of the products we've created a swift kick in the ass. So Instrument started as a 4-man dev shop in Vermont. They were working on development for Burton.com in this weird windowless office. And there were 2 partners at that time, Vince LaVecchia and Justin Lewis. And more than likely, just in an attempt to get away from static electricity and humidity, they moved the company out to Portland. I know that's why I moved. So they were kind of noticing again and again, especially when they started working on the Wieden and Kennedy website, that there was this ultimate need for design as a discipline. Even though that's not what they set out to do, they just kept getting requests for it and saw how it could really improve the products they were delivering. So they joined forces with JD Hugi from Gridplane. And this is one of the first projects they worked on together. There's super cool music. This is from 2011 Google I/O. It was made using Google Canvas and has some perfectly fitting 2011 style designs. And that was really the start of a great relationship that we have with Google. So that new partnership with JD went swimmingly for about 3 months until the office at Instrument burned to the ground. So that was some pretty tough stuff. It really made everyone kind of take a break and look at where the company was headed. But ultimately, it led to the company moving into the Instrument Outpost. This is a 12,000 square foot World War II shipbuilding warehouse. And aside from just allowing for ample space for skateboarding and basketball games and throwing huge Halloween ragers, it really just gave us the physical space to start to expand. And really to start to experiment. So we started, talking about things like, well, what if we just did the photo shoot here? What if we just started shooting some videos to go along with these products we're creating? And with all that new physical space, Instrument did expand really quickly. We went in just a few months from 10 people to 20 people to 30 people, ultimately up to 40 people. And that's when the partners kind of took a look at the structure of the company and how we were handling things like resourcing or client relationships. And they found that around 30 people, we had hit this critical mass where it just started to feel a little bit cumbersome and time-consuming, especially when it came to resourcing. We were doing this pool-style resourcing where if a new project came through, we'd look at everybody in the office and kind of pick and choose who'd be good for the project. We might pull someone off a project that they had been working on to jump into a new one. And that just wasn't conducive to maintaining these super strong client relationships. So Justin Lewis, who used to be a Marine, he was in the Black Hawk Down operation. I don't know if I can even tell you that, but I just did. He really pushed us to move to this team structure. So his concept was get these teams together, make them super agile, 10 to 15 people, and combine the disciplines of production, design, development, and strategy. And at first there were some fussy feelings for sure. Before this, just physical layout, we had designers sitting in one corner of the office, developers were over banging too loud on their keyboard, producers were sitting in another corner creating Gantt charts and sighing heavily, and it just, it was very spread out. So Justin came in and said, okay, I'm smashing you guys all together. Designers especially were a little bit uneasy about this because they really couldn't figure out how to share their Pinterest boards if they were sitting 20 feet apart. So after a little bit, a week maybe, people really started to see some positive effects. So for one, when you get to this team structure, everybody gets to pick a team name, which is super awesome. Win-win. Our team name is Team Spirit. We're the best team. So that segues into the second positive effect, which is there's a little bit of this healthy competition between the teams. As I mentioned, our team's the best, but it really does make you look at the other teams, see what they're cranking out, and make you really want to strive to make something bigger and better. So at the same time, there's this overarching pride that comes from just working at Instrument, but there's also this little amount of, hey, the Google team just made something freaking awesome and pushed their clients to do something that they've never done before. We want to apply the same thing to the clients that we're working with. There's also this internal team motivation that happens. So when we have these smaller, more intimate teams, we really form this quick camaraderie with the people we're working with. So we started to see people really relying on each other and having this expectation that the person sitting next to you is going to work just as hard as you're working, and vice versa. We also noticed a huge improvement in just client love. So because we had these teams that could ultimately be dedicated to certain clients they were working with, we were able to continue relationships across multiple projects. So it wasn't a new reintroduction of a team or the people you're working with every time a new project kicked off. It changed the way we hire. So prior to this, we had a lot of specialists. We had people that were hyper-specialized in certain fields. Specifically with designers, we would hire a UX designer or a brand designer. And when we moved to these smaller teams, we noticed that being specialized, hello, cool. I won't move. Being hyper-specialized, whoa, what should I do? Should I just be frozen? Being hyper-specialized wasn't good at all. So when we started hiring new designers, we really asked them to think a little bit outside of what they were capable of, if they'd be willing to think outside the box. If they thought of themselves as a UX designer, maybe they would be willing to think of themselves as also a brand designer. And then finally, and probably the biggest thing we noticed, was just the multi-discipline collaboration. So by being on these smaller teams and by really forcing people, designers to sit next to developers, amongst the strategists, amongst the producers, it really spawned a lot of conversations. And one of the best examples of this was the Build. This was an interactive video project, and it really took storytelling and a lot of beautiful design, incredible development, and with those, facets all working together, sitting side by side and poking each other to kind of push things a little bit further or make it a little bit smarter or make it a little bit more beautiful, we really saw that come to life. Another great example was Duet, which is a out-of-browser experience. This really took people out of their wheelhouse because we had designers and developers working with their hands and really getting out in the field. We had to create a product that needed to touch a bunch of people, get people immersed in a very short amount of time. This installation was only live for about 2 weeks during Music Fest Northwest. But by them all kind of challenging each other to think about things a little bit differently, we were able to create a beautiful experience that a lot of people were engaged in. So we're just now about over 100 people, but we've been able to scale in this really non-disruptive way, where if we need to add a new team, we easily can. When we started adding in the content team, we were able to create this filmmaking group that's able to collaborate with all the different teams throughout the office. And one of the biggest things we've seen is it really just allows us to own the end-to-end experience. So if you look at a project like Stumptown, we recently partnered with them, and we were able to own everything in that experience, from reimagining their social strategy to a complete overhaul of their website, to thinking through the way that they handle their coffee subscription service, to thinking through creating 7 real-time brew guide videos that we were able to produce and own the art direction for. And ultimately, it just created an overall better product. So what we've seen is over time, our dream clients have essentially become our existing clients. And more importantly, our existing clients have become our existing partners. We've been doing some great work with Nike and Google, and we have 2 teams that are entirely dedicated to those clients. And we've been doing some amazing new partnerships and really building long-lasting engagements with them with Chef's Feed and Sequoia Capital and Amazon. So it's really exciting to kind of see what's coming up. And we all feel very confident with this growth because, when companies start to get to upwards of 100 people, there's a lot of questions about like, well, what's going to happen next? And we're losing sight of the big picture and all that stuff. But we're really able to continue to make these large-scale products using this small-scale model. And we're moving into our new building. It's super fancy pants this fall. And it's really been nice to kind of squash any inhibitions people have about how we're changing or this and that, because we really are keeping sight of the overarching instrument goals and heart while being able to focus on the details in these smaller teams. So that's it. Thank you.